Hello, 안녕하세요. Ryan Walters, definitely not reporting for the third time after camera difficulties. Along with Matthew Binns, we're here at Seoul World Cup Stadium. Matthew, let's start with this one today. The Gyeonggi Derby was kind of the headline of the late matches today. Finished 1-1, some spectacular goals. Do you think that's a fair result in the end?
Yeah, I think so. Seoul came out better in the second half, but the first half they did look a bit lost. Incheon did capitalise on that, and yeah, I think both teams will be pleased, which probably they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But both teams will be pleased with the final result, with the way it played out. Seoul obviously coming back from a goal behind. Incheon coming here, difficult place to get a point, and they've got a point against their fierce rivals and another point towards safety.
Yeah, I think for Incheon, especially with Jeonnam losing, which we'll get to in a minute, but with Jeonnam losing, closes that gap a little bit to 3 points at the bottom of the table, and it keeps their streak alive. Another match that they haven't lost, so that's positive for Incheon. But speaking of that other match that happened today, well, you know what, we'll get to that in a minute because there are a few other things here. Who impressed you the most today, would you say?
Go Yohan always impresses for me in a Seoul shirt. I think as much as I tend to rail against Seoul, there's no denying that Go Yohan is probably the best thing about this team, and probably the one thing that may keep them from relegation is his passion towards towards his team and the fighting. And it was a good goal from him as well. But I think Moon Son-min as well. And I know I've chosen the two goal scorers there, but Moon Son-min was running those channels and he was attacking as often as he has done this season. Both these players are going to be crucial in their fight for survival.
Yeah, definitely got to highlight them. And then I thought Bonoza had a really good match for Incheon as well. Shut things down early when it looked like Seoul was going to come out strong there. He had a decent match. And Young Han-bin's always doing things for Seoul. Not so much today, but this is a Seoul squad that, as we're talking about the split coming up, as we're talking about the relegation standings, I see we have a question that came in about relegation. This is a club that, they've got feelings of Sangnam from a couple years ago, where it's a giant team that just seems like, oh no, it wouldn't happen. But this is another match where they can't get a result. This marks 4 matches in a row against Incheon that they haven't been able to get a win, a stat courtesy of Matthew Binns, that they're used to winning these matches, and it just is another thing that makes it feel like this isn't the FC Seoul of old. And can that go far enough to them to get dragged into the relegation battle?
Very much so. As I think you just said, as Songnam thought they were too big to go down, and they weren't, and Seoul seem to be in a very similar situation. They are sleepwalking towards relegation, and they've got only themselves to blame now. They did the right thing by sacking Hwang back in May, but then to employ a caretaker manager on a permanent basis, one without any managerial experience, and just say that's good enough for the rest of the season. It's that laissez-faire attitude that is going to help them, aid in their relegation ultimately. The board have not made the right step there, and with the lights are dimming, it looked just like FC Seoul's season. And I don't know. I'd be worried if I was a Seoul fan. They do not look to have that attacking verve. I don't know who's scoring the goals for them.
No, it's certainly not Matic. After today, he came on as a sub. Just another very, very not flat out poor performance, but just not enough there. And then Anderson, Lopez, and Evandro, thank you.
Not even on the bench.
Not even on the bench today.
No, and they persist with Park Hee-sung up front, who had again another terrible game in front of goal. And I don't see where the goals are coming from. If it wasn't for Go Yohan, they'd already be down with Incheon. Yeah,
they really would. So there's a lot coming up in the next couple of weeks for them, in the next couple of months for Seoul as well, to actually avoid relegation. And something that I think a lot of fans in Incheon, Suwon, Jeonbuk joked about preseason, but now it's starting to look like it might be a reality. Speaking of the other teams in the relegation battle here, we have a question from John coming in. If Incheon can have another magic relegation avoidance. My tongue's not working today. Anyway, basically, can Incheon avoid relegation yet again? And I think my answer to that is yes, clearly. I mean, the way that they've been playing lately. And again, this is a team that's used to it. They get to this point of the season, they turn it on. They've done it before. I think they're going to do it again this year. Just the team that we saw today does not look like a team that's going to get relegated.
No, I think you've only really got to start worrying about relegation when the goals dry up. And I think Incheon have got a lot of good attacking talent there, and that will see them through when the crunch games come. You've got Seoul and Sangju, who are the two real teams that are falling without a trace here, and neither team looks like scoring.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd really be more concerned about Seoul and Sangju. I think Incheon, as long as they keep playing the way they are, the manager's got them playing some good football for the resources that he has available to him. I think they should still be worried. They're not in the right position at the moment, but they're getting there.
Yeah, and I think the teams around them are also doing really well. Jeonnam didn't get the result that they wanted today. Jeonnam ended up going up to Jeonju and losing 1-0. No surprise there. We talked about it a lot. Obviously, we were watching the game, and we talked a lot about that as it was happening. That Jeonnam can still kind of hold their head high on this one. You don't really go into Jeonju expecting to get points and to only allow 1 goal. I think it was a good performance from the Dragons. What did you take away from it for Jeonbuk?
Yeah, so I was watching this while we were watching this one. And perhaps my analysis isn't spot on here, but Jeonbuk effectively dominated the game. As
no surprise.
Yeah, no surprise.
Yeah.
It had 17 shots to Jeonnam's 4, 9 of which were on target compared to Jeonnam's 3. But to be honest, the stats were far more even at half time. Jeonbuk came out, used their bench options to push forward the attack, but Jeonnam were resilient in defence. Jeonbuk couldn't break them down. They were firing speculative balls into the box, which Kim Shin-wook had an off day in front of goal.
Yeah.
At the end, it was a clever run by Han Kyo-won, or you could say perhaps the Jeonnam defence just slipping just a little bit there at the end.
It was a clever run.
It was a clever run. Just taking all 3 points for Jeonbuk, but yeah, Jeonnam can hold their heads high. I don't think they would expect, when they're looking at the fixtures where they're going to get the points for the survival, I don't think they would have marked that one as where 3 points were reasonable, and they should be proud of their performance today, and 1-0 is fine, a just result.
And one of the last times that they're going to have to face a team in the top half of the table. Those points for them are obviously going to come after the split, which is coming up in just 3 rounds. Somehow we just finished up round 30 here in K-League 1. The split, for those that are watching this and somehow don't know, the league is going to split into 2 with the championship round and the relegation round. The championship round will be playing for the title, which might be secured by then by some team that wears green.
16 points clear at the moment. It looks set.
It's so fun. And in the bottom half, they're going to be fighting to avoid relegation, and that is going to be an interesting half of the table. Just to paint the picture of where that is right now, the other results that came in today, Matt's going to run us through.
So there was 4 games in the 2 o'clock kickoff today. Gangwon beat Suwon Blue Wings 1-0. That was with a last-minute Jung Jo-guk goal.
And it was a lovely goal.
It was a lovely goal.
Nice turn and just upper 90, just beautiful.
High-flying Ulsan beat a lowly Jeju 3-1. Jeju, another team, a bit like FC Seoul, sleepwalking towards relegation, but the thing is, Jeju have done enough early on that they should be safe.
Maybe that's getting close.
Who knows? There are a lot of teams here there are 3 teams in this league who think that they belong, and Jeju and Seoul mainly, that think they're too big to go down, and
we'll see.
Sangju anyway lost to Pohang 2-1.
Another team on the plummet right now.
And Pohang now up to 4th as well. And Daegu drew 2-2 with second place Gyeongnam with a last-minute penalty kick from who else but Sasina, current form player for Daegu, as we discussed recently in our Power Rankings podcast.
Celebration might have been a bit much on that one, taking off his shirt and doing the messy celebration in a 2-2 draw. That's just me, though.
Well, it's a point in the right direction for Daegu. They are looking safer and safer with each passing round.
And I think we may have seen the goal of the day, speaking of celebration, or not the goal of the year, certainly the goal of the day, but Marcao with a lovely flick to himself and a scissor kick to the far corner. Gyeongnam continues to do it, continues to get things done, and I think we're going to be seeing ACL in Changwon next year.
Won't that be exciting? We could very well see ACL very much in the southern half of the country, I think. Unless Blue Wings can win the FA Cup, I don't see Blue Wings even favourite for league qualification for the ACL. So we could very much be on our travels to get to any Champions League games from up here in Seoul, but great stuff for any fans down in the south of the country. Yeah,
for those that may have lived perhaps in Jola at one point in time, be great.
It was a long time, 2017, without that Champions League football, believe me.
Anyway, thanks for watching from Germany here, and I agree with the other comment that just came in that the Dragons are indeed going to be the FA Cup champions.
Stranger things have happened.
I will make the trip down there. So we're about to get out of here because, as you can tell, things are quite empty at the moment. But before we do, the table at the top is pretty much secure. Jeonbuk is pretty much just a few weeks away from mathematically lifting that trophy and then playing a lot of kids for a little while, we would assume. But things get really interesting from 2 all the way down to 12 after 30 rounds.
So I'll run down the table very quickly. Jeonbuk lead with 70 points. Second place, Gyeongnam 54 points. Ulsan third with 51. Pohang fourth with 43 points. Suwon Blue Wings fifth with 42nd. They went down a position today. And Gangwon finishing up the top half of the split with 38 points. Then we get into the interesting territory. Daegu, 7th place now, 36 points. They're pushing for a top half berth here.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. 8th place, Jeju United. They continue their plummet downwards, 35 points for them. 9th is FC Seoul, 34 points for them, and they are also in trouble. 10th, Sangju Sangmu with 32 points. 11th, Jeonnam Dragons, 29 points, 3 points away from safety at the moment. And Incheon United, 26 points at the bottom of the table.
I did not realize that Daegu had come up that far. And to be honest, on form for the past couple of months, post-World Cup, I think they deserve to be in the top half more than Gangwon, and hopefully they can close that gap and get up there.
Yeah, they've got some great players. I really like. I've said before, I think their manager's good. I'm glad that they've stuck with him, and I worry that if they got into the top half, they would lose a lot of games, and it'd be a bit of a whimper to the end of the season. But I'm sure Daegu fans, after a long time at the bottom of the table, let's not forget they were rooted to that table early on. They would just take finishing in the top half.
Yeah, even if it was 6, what a turnaround it would be for them.
Daegu's still in the FA Cup. You know, things are still looking up down in Daegu.
We could be looking at a Jeonnam Daegu final in the World Cup, and everybody very pleased about it.
In the World Cup.
In the World Cup.
The MLS slipping out of you there.
You take a few days off for a vacation and everything just doesn't work. Anyway, speaking of vacation, it is Chuseok, so happy Chuseok to everybody out there celebrating here in Korea on the final day of it. Hopefully you've got a job where you're off for Thursday and Friday. If not, like some of us, you'll be heading back to work. But anyway, that's it for us this round. I will figure out how to communicate from my brain to my tongue better for the next one. And if you have any questions, comments, or reactions, anything else like that, please get them in, and we'll get to them on here, on the podcast, anywhere else. Just get in touch, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.
Bye.